Hello folks, I got here again. Welcome to my home on this very beautiful spring afternoon. The name of these videos is called, the name of this one video, oh by the way, since I put my finger up there on the screen, I could see it. It reminded me to ask you to do this. Would you mind giving me a thumbs up on this video before we get started? The name of this video is called The Why Guy Asks, Why Did the Ancient Latin Church Push a Hell Narrative? It's going to answer so many questions for folks. I would encourage you as my viewer, if you happen to have a friend who's continually pushes forth the idea that, well look, if God didn't intend the word hell to be put in the Bible or the warning of hell to be put in the Bible, then why is it in there? Get him to watch this video, okay? Seriously. Or if they say, I've heard this, I grew up hearing this one, well, you know, Jesus warned of hell and mentioned hell more than anyone else. No, he didn't. So anyway, so for Jesus to use, I have to use a little sarcasm here, but for Jesus to use an English word, hell, that came from the Latin word infernum, while speaking to his Jewish brethren who spoke primarily Hebrew or Aramaic, just think about it. It's absurd that he'd even use it. Anyway, the name of this video is, you said, so why did the ancient Latin church push a hell narrative anyway? Why did they do that? There's got to be a reason behind it, a motive behind these kind of things. You know, the smallest amount of research into the ancient Latin culture explains everything. It really does. And it didn't take me long to research this. It really didn't. So I'd encourage anyone to do that. And with, you know, at our fingertips, the keypad, there's no excuse for ignorance. There really isn't. So, like most governments of that time, all right, I'm going to just give you just a brief rundown. Like most governments of that time, superstition was a huge factor in determining how to run a society. It was. Because of our modern day, we don't think of that. We think mainly science, not superstition. But back then it was superstition, okay? So the punishments done to people so often reflected a belief, okay, in evil spirits, requiring an exorcism. We've heard of that word before, right? And it was commonplace to use physical torture to do those exorcisms. Okay, it was. So apparently, get this irony, apparently evil spirits were uncomfortable with physical pain. That's kind of like, duh. Did you catch that? As if something that was a spirit was afraid of physical pain. Unholy crap. Anyway, it was thought by any reasonable community of that day, and ours as well, okay, so I understand it, that people were generally good. So there has to be a reason why good people do bad things. Thus, the reason they invented evil spirits. Common sense, okay? And believe it or not, that's in the back of the average person's mind as well in our present day, all right? The final nail in the governmental coffin, though, we're still thinking about the ancient Latin church, okay? The final nail in a governmental coffin was to incorporate a religion into the mix. And that, my dear friends, is exactly what ancient Rome did. That's what they did. A vacuum was created when the rule of Caesars and emperors, along with the Roman Senate, they ceased as a major influence in that government. Romulus Augustulus was the last Caesar of Rome. And if you want to investigate this, Romulus, R-O-M-U-L-U-S, his first name, last name, Augustulus, almost like you're stuttering, Augustulus, is A-U-G-U-S-T-U-L-U-S. Okay? Investigate it, okay? He was the last Caesar of Rome, and he died at 476 A.D. And you know what? 476 A.D. was only 36 years after the publication of the Latin Vulgate. How convenient. That's quite telling. It really is. The rule of religion was rising, okay? It was rising and was pushing the Caesars out of power. These are historic facts, folks. They wanted to stay in power. They really did. These folks that were in power, they wanted to stay in power. So where do you think bishops and popes came from? or at least the idea of bishops and popes, okay? I'm not saying, by the way, that bishops and popes and the Catholic Church is corrupt. I'm not saying any of that. Well, we're all corrupt, okay? And all religion is corrupt to one degree or another. So I'm not trying to, you get me. I'm still defending our precious brothers and sisters that are in the Catholic Church, okay? That's fine. I'm still defending them. But history is history, okay? But anyway, where do you think these bishops and popes came from in the first place? Speaking of power, the very thing that kept a Caesar in power was control. And that, my dear viewer, is the exact same power that the ancient Latin Church had in mind from its conception. Control. I'm not saying that's the way it is now, but it was back then when it started. The love of God still has a way of pushing through the crap and the garbage that men want to promote. All right? So, by what means did the Caesars enforce control? Well, they used fear of punishment and torture from the government. And at that time in history, the church and government were melding as one. So in like manner, the ancient Latin Church used fear of punishment and torture from the governing church hierarchy. So research the Inquisition, okay? And you'll discover that I'm correct here. I really am. It didn't stop there, however. The insidious frosting on the proverbial cake was how they used fear of being punished and tortured by God as well. But instead of a temporal prison cell or chamber that they instigated in their government, a cell or it would be done in a place called infernum, which is hell in English. The cherry on top of that proverbial cake, that word proverbial, I'm struggling with it today. Anyway, was how this punishment would last forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. Okay? To further promote their fear agenda, the ancient Latin Church published the first Bible of sorts and inserted the word infernum, okay, hell in English, into both the Hebrew and Greek letters and manuscripts 111 times when it never existed before. Okay? Again, try to get folks who are wondering why hell is in their Bibles. Okay? This answers it. It really does. And I dare any of them to try to prove me wrong. Because if they do, they're going to go, oh, he was right. Anyway, they inserted it 111 times where it never existed before. These were not errors in translation, folks, but a purposeful manipulation of words such as Gehenna, Sheol, grave pit, unseen, death, and fire, and the perverted yet wrongly accepted in most Christian circles, the pagan Greek word Hades. However, the publishers of the Vulgate were not consistent. They only changed the words that I just gave you an example of. Okay, they only changed those words into whenever punishment was involved. Okay, the context, whenever it spoke of punishment. So, as an example, ancient Rome had a garbage dump. You can't tell me they didn't, okay? And they knew full well that Gehenna was a garbage dump, where refuge and bodies of criminals were discarded. They knew that, yet they chose to change it to read in the Vulgate as infernum, hell. Okay, instead of using their well-known word, quisquile, that's Quisquiliae, okay, which means garbage or trash, and tuber. And I'm not sure if I pronounced quisquile, if I pronounced that right or not, but anyway, tuber, I know I pronounced right. And tuber, which means dump. Now, most of our modern Bibles are translated or greatly influenced by the heavily perverted Latin Vulgate. That's how it happened. And not one of our modern versions can agree on how many times the word hell, infernum, okay, should be used. That fact alone is completely ignored by hell-believing Christians. Yet it should bring up a red flag in the mind of anyone who considers themselves intelligent. So in closing this video, it doesn't help matters that we don't have any original texts. We don't. But only numerous copies of translations of put on of copies, okay? That's what we have. So, as per originals, so the closest that we have, folks, and the oldest is the Septuagint, which is the Greek Old Testament. And guess what? The word hell was never mentioned in it either. Okay, that should really lighten some people's minds up, wake people up a little bit, if you just think about it. However, yet the word Hades was. And since it represented a pagan Greek underworld of torment, it really did help cement the legitimacy of hell, which is infernum, in the minds of the ignorant who don't know why the word Hades was inserted into Scripture as well. There was a governmental agenda from the Greek government as well, almost for the same reason. Well, it was used to unify people under a Greek religion, you know, of Zeus and the Greek gods. Okay, you guys, you know that, right? So anyway, it still represented a Greek underworld, just like hell represented, or infernum represented, a Latin pagan underworld. It's okay. No one can convince me otherwise, not after I've researched it. If you go to the oldest version, I'm going to digress here for a second. If you go to the oldest version, the oldest writing where Hades was first mentioned by Socrates, which is the oldest writing that we have on hand, what did he claim that Hades meant? Did he claim it meant Sheol, or meant something that Christians believe it means, just a place of the dead? No. He said it was the name of the Greek god. Oh, I should say the Greek king of the underworld, and his name was Hades, which was a brother of Zeus, and blah blah blah. So anyway, sorry I digressed and this bug off of my head. Where was I? Anyway, that's a whole other topic for a whole other time. So I've done plenty of videos on Hades. You can look that up, the white guy, such and such Hades. Look them up. I've explained in detail the history of all that. Well, look, folks, I can't make it any simpler than this for why the word hell is in most Bibles. I really can't. And but there's good news, however. There's many Bibles that don't have neither words hell nor Hades. Isn't that something? Within its pages. That should say something too. If there's Bibles that don't have either one of those, so how can you legitimize either one of those words? Okay, I can supply a list upon request, so just ask. Look me up on Facebook under a group called the White Guy Group. And don't forget, like I asked from the beginning, to give me one of these thumbs up. And I also have the White Guy Group is a private group. I have an avatar name of John Anthony Jones, and it's open to the public. You can see pretty much everything I put in the White Guy Group. It's public access, so you don't have to join anything. All right. And in the Show Me More section, there's 7 links there. Would you mind scrolling down and possibly supporting this channel with Patreon or Coffee? And check them out. And you'll see my website down there, and the 3 links to my 3 books that I have published. And I'm finishing up a 4th one as well. Did I get everything? Oh yeah, did I have to mention this? Yeah, I did, didn't I? For some reason, that thumbs up does something. I've been told it changes the algorithms and makes it easier for people to find my videos. That's what I've been told. I don't know how true that is because I don't understand it. But consider 4th time doing one of these. And if you haven't subscribed, if you have subscribed, thank you so much. And if you haven't, push that subscribe button, and there's a little bell that's above it. If you push that, you'll be notified every time I do another video. Thank you for viewing.